Welcome to NA's very own Amateur Worlds Semifinals. Teams from across the region have been battling it out over the last 2 weeks to determine who will have the privilege of moving forward in the tournament and having the opportunity to compete for that sweet, sweet first place cash reward. Once again, I am Crewman, joined by Huey and Gopher. First off, gentlemen, we have some very interesting and somewhat shocking news coming out of Group B. TD Supernova is once again unable to field at least 3 out of their 5 starting members, and therefore they have been forced to give up their spot in the semifinals to their sister team, TD Syndicate. Gopher, I'm coming to you first. Obviously, it is disappointing that Supernova are unable to play here in the knockout stage, but considering the fact that they were technically undefeated, they played only 4 out of 6 scheduled games, but still, they had an incredible day last week, going 4-0, including their tiebreaker match against TD Shadow. But Gopher, I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more for us on your thoughts concerning this development and how you expect it to impact our semifinals overall.
I mean, it happens to the best of us, really. Like, everybody has their own schedules, so I don't fault them. It definitely does suck, but hey, it happens. As for the impact it's going to have, well, obviously, we can expect Supernova to not win it anymore. Shocking, I know. And they definitely were kind of looking like the tournament favorites with their record, because the only other undefeated team was CT, Coachless Tyranny. However, Coachless Tyranny did drop a series last week on stream.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that's a reasonable transition there, Gopher, to discuss our streamed semifinal here at twitch.tv/excellency esports. Coachless Tyranny versus TD Syndicate, what we're going to be having on the interwebs for you guys here tonight. CT have only dropped that one game, Gopher, as you mentioned, through the whole tournament so far. That was to TD Junior, which is, of course, Group A's second seed. So CT are looking very strong coming into the knockout stage here. I think they do have to be favored going up against what is technically Group B's third seed in TD Syndicate. So I do believe that they have to be favored. And Coach's Tyranny, also important to note, they have selected Blue Side here for our first game. Blue Side does have a very strong win rate right now across all levels of play. So Huey, what do you think? This is, of course, the first time that these two teams will be matching up against each other here at Amateur Worlds. But what do you think about this matchup? And to be more specific, which lane actually are you going to be focusing on here in this first game? Who are your players to watch in this one?
So you're saying Blue Side being a strong side? CT hasn't dropped a game on Blue Side yet, okay? So it's 3-0 for them right now. So this is going to be the hardest match right now for TD to get over. And for players, it's kind of tough right now. Downfall is going to be a really good one to look out for. Also looking over for TD, gotta look over for Agent C6 also. And for their mid lane too, Lemon, because this is going to be a very explosive match. Top lane's going to matter a lot. Rift Arrows, I've noticed, mean a lot. That first Rift Arrow is going to mean a lot. The first couple dragons really don't necessarily set the entire pace for the game, because the soul is what actually matters. So those first two kind of get exchanged there, but that Rift Arrow really starts breaking down the plates, and then from there kind of starts snowballing and getting the teams in gear for the round.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially down here at IBS, I really think that the soul stacking is an incredibly important thing to consider for all of these teams. That's I feel like how a lot of the games at this level move forward, how they progress, and how one team ultimately gets the advantages that they need to close things out. So I do love that you call that out, Huey. We are, I assume, pretty close to being ready for that first champion select. So I don't know if you guys, I believe you're in the lobby. If you could just keep me in touch there about when the teams are ready to go. I'm sure that's going to be very, very shortly here. But first, before we do move into that, I do want to get some predictions from each one of you guys, okay? So back to Gopher, you first. Who do you think is going to take it here in our streamed semi over here at Excellency? Is it going to be the side of Coachless Tyranny, or is TD Syndicate going to make a little bit of an upset happen tonight?
It's definitely very Coach's Tyranny favored, like you said, and I'm favoring them too. TD Syndicate, I'll give them about a 25% ballpark estimate for a potential to upset here. But it is a little bit of a long shot, I feel.
Okay, and I think we're moving into draft right now, but really quickly, Huey, to you, your prediction, please.
3-0. I see the 4-0, but I don't think this is going to end just here. I think this is going to set the pace, and then I think we're going to get to a full game 5 for sure.
You're predicting 3-0. What was that about a game 5?
3-0? No, not a 3-0. The 3-0 on blue side, game 1 definitely going to CT. If I don't have to fully go all the way through, it's going to be 2-2 last game CT taking it home.
Gotcha. Okay, well, enjoy game 1, guys. Take it away.
As we get on to draft picks here, and I am loving the target band here. We just mentioned top lane's going to matter a lot, and look at all those go for. You got TK, you got Gnar, you got Jax, you got Wukong, Olaf, and Mordekaiser taken off the map. I can't tell you how much of a target band that is on both sides.
And Coach's Tyranny opting to lock in the Vigart first pick here. Typically, you see the Vigart a little bit later in the draft as more of a counterplay, like, oh, they have a bunch of champions that need to run at us. I can drop the cage. Senna going to be the answer here for TDS. Senna was really OP, did get some hotfix nerfs, but still very strong, very flexible. And if you do want to, you can run the Senna Swain bot lane here if you are TDS. But I'm kind of feeling they're going to pick a top laner here, Huey, just with how pinched the pool is.
Yeah, the pool, that is like a perfect description for the pool. It is pinch. Almost everyone taking off, and wow, a mid laner going to be taken up there. I was totally on your side with that. I thought a top laner would be picked up here. Well, I mean, we still have some few ones. Honestly, Darius, being as strong as he is in this meta right now, has not been played yet. So he's still an active one there. Aatrox as well hasn't been touched either, which I'm honestly surprised that some of these strong picks in the top lane has not been used yet. And that was definitely in the pool for the top lane. And CT gonna kind of match and take the bot lane instead with the MF Leona picks.
And I believe this combo was used against them last week.
Yeah.
To really smash them in. So maybe taking some notes from the enemies here. They already have a nice little AoE comp here. If you're able to drop the cage, if you're able to drop the solar flare, those are great ways of locking people into the bullet time. Just eat that full thing on up, and unless you are like the tankiest tank that stacked armor all game, you're probably not exiting that one, to say the least here. But TDS, very, very hard on the utility and control so far. You have a lot of CC coming from each and every one of these champs here, Huey. So TDS maybe opting instead to control the battlefield, make some zones of please don't come through here.
Yeah, no, I am honestly really enjoying these picks through and through right now. Excuse me. I'm a little nervous though on the Cho'Gath pick overall though.
Yeah, it can be countered, but with how just a hard band out the top lane pool is, we have a total of 8 top lane bans here, really leveraged. So it means a lot of champions like Fiora and Gwen that might turbo counter the Cho'Gath, not exactly going to be on the table. There are still other picks like the Darius you said, that does fairly well into the Cho'Gath because the Cho'Gath's slow and lumbering like you, but if the Cho'Gath's in your range, yada yada yada. But what did TDS want to lock in here? I'm feeling it's going to be the jungler. Just to, yep, there we go. Secure yourself your extra bit of damage, secure another carry for your composition, and let your support slash whoever's getting the fasting Senna boost be the last pick.
Yeah, I don't know, man. With the top so scarce now, where is CT going to go here? There has to be locked in within the next 2. I feel you may get the jungle pick right now just because you do see the Graves. So you're going to see the Trundle there. So you're going to have the full last pick. You're going to get to see entirely the entire squad for TD and then go towards there. But honestly, where would you really go? I do see Scion being available too. Ornn also being a strong pick as well. Where do you go? What really fills this out for CT?
It could actually be the Trundle they already locked in. Could also just be the Ornn there, like you
There it
called.
is.
So top lane is just going to be a battle up the grass procs. There will be a little bit of kill pressure, but it's really just going to be a merit of how many grasp the Undying stacks do you have on your opponent. Because that's how
Yeah,
take matchups usually go. But the last second kill here means which one of these champs is going bot lane with the Senna? Anivia could be interesting. Shogat Senna is something I've heard about before. Um, this is interesting.
that is definitely interesting. I think the Anivia is best played. We'll do it from choices of elimination. Anivia has to be best played, I feel, mid lane. Let her soak up all that experience, kind of take control there, try to force back their mid laner there. Cho'Gath most likely has to go top to match the Ornn. Graves in the jungle, so that's probably a Kale with the Senna bot, which I haven't seen yet. You have a little information on that one there?
No. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the call, given how Kale is also very XP and level dependent, and the fact that you would be going bot lane really restricts your EXP access. And I have actually at least seen Senna Cho'Gath before. It was like one thing from a friend in the collegiate LoL scene. His team did. Here and there as like a weird like haha got you thing that worked out pretty decently well. It's very tanky, it's very hard to dive, just thanks to Cho'Gath's silence. And I'm guessing that might be the call here because Rupture is a great way to interrupt the bullet time. And you have the little Void Scream dealio to block any Leona all-ins.
Is a That is a pretty good call. Um, that's a pretty good call. I like the Wombo from CT. The CT Wombo combo is insane. Also, as big as Cho'Gath gets, Trundle gets to steal all those stats back with his ult. So, I mean, the longer the game goes, the better it gets for them. They really have a really pretty decent control on the mid game around that first that level 6 hits. Their 6 is very strong. TD, on the other hand, has a window to get out in the super late game in Kale, as long as Kale doesn't get destroyed here in the early game. She has to make it to 18 though to make it worth.
Mm-hmm. Level 16 is the spike we all know, because then you just have the perma extension, the perma burns, the perma AoE. And if it is that kill top against the Ornn, it should at least be a much more easy matchup. You get the early Leeching Leer, and once you hit level 6 and have access to those ranged auto attacks, things become much easier for you. You are squishy enough, though. You are very punishable with dive, so you will have to be careful if anybody else from the side of Coach's Tyranny decides to try and dive you in that top side, because you're not surviving that full breath. You're not surviving that full breath.
You're probably not going to be able to escape, honestly. Anivia wall, knock up, Graves damage, Senna from across the map, add in a KOR later. Yeah, no, you're really, really not. The thing with CT is they have to stay remotely grouped. TD, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily have to stay fully 5-man. CT has a 5-man death ball. With the Cho and the Kale, they don't always have to necessarily stay so grouped. So I do kind of like that coming from TD, but I'm still enjoying the CT pick overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about TD's side here, just mostly in the context of who the hell's going where. Because we know where at least 2 of the champions are going. Most likely, most likely.
At least. But I kind of like that flexibility, though. Because if
does.
you really don't like the matchup or you feel the matchup is better other ways, you can really bring that around. And that kind of can throw wrenches into your plans, too, on the side of CT. So I like that, honestly.
But still, CT's composition is very much more straightforward. You got this huge bursty team fight with the MF Vigar combo. You have the Trundle to be slapping people around, make sure there's no tank able to soak up everything you throw out during these fights. And you do have good long-range engage. You will, of course, get outscaled, like we have mentioned. There is, of course, a Kale and a Sene/Graves, so it's not going to be working out too well for you if it does go to the late game. If it does go to the late game,
You really don't want it to go to the late game. You don't want to see the monstrosity Cho'Gath can become infinite stacking Senna, and then level 18 Caleb, man. That's it. That's a win condition in its own, as long as she doesn't get destroyed. You put that Kale down, she's 0-4 too early. Early dragon secured by around like 20 minutes or so. And she's not even going to have the chance to even become a champion, and you can really just kind of roam off that.
Mhm. That's a big if though, because
It's true.
with the hotfix nerfs, it was only towards the base MR of Kale, which did bring it down very low, made her that much more vulnerable. But the fact that you still have all the other things that make it Kale really good, and just all the other innate tankiness, might mean it might be really hard to force out Crockpot here. That is, of course, a Kale top. This is assuming a lot with how wacky this composition is.
Oh, Kale top though into the Ornn. Oh, that is not a fun time though on Kale's side, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's about surviving like most Kale
It is
matchups.
about survival. It definitely that is what it becomes. It becomes a survival game. And I don't know, man. That's just not a fun game within itself. A lot of pressure is set here for semifinals. Coming from TD side as well. You're the underdog coming in, so you have a lot to show for. So that pressure has to be immense right now.
It definitely has to be. Maybe that's why we're seeing the interesting draft come out. Who knows? Who knows? I'm just mostly waiting for the bans to get through in client. They're taking a little extra long for some reason, even though they're much quicker in the draft poll. And we'll finally get to see where people are going.
Yeah, this is. I honestly want to see where people want to start going, and then that can really help with the predictions going on ahead. Speaking of, that should be coming through over on Twitch as well. And also, while we do have the moment, ProComps is an official sponsor of Amateur Worlds and is a drafting tool for League of Legends teams and coaches that want to take their game to the next level. Be sure to check out ProComps at the links described below over at Twitch chat, and try it out for free, guys. And as we get a couple champs getting locked in here, so that is the Kale locked in for Crockpot. Obviously, that's the Orange Trundle. All right. So I don't know about that top lane though. It's tough. That's a very tough matchup over for Kale's side.
It is extremely vulnerable to dives because one pillar forces out your flash. And one or because okay, there's technically two pillars you have to worry about because the Ornn has the searing rupture. No, the steering pillar, I believe it is. So that's like two pillars you're gonna have to walk around. And that's not easy when you are Kale, because you don't really have the longest range when you get that first boost. I believe it's 525, 550 auto range, which can be a little bit of an issue. And if you're locked in the mid lane, though, means we are going to get to see the Senna Cho'Gath bot here. I do like that because the Cho'Gath in the bot lane so effectively neuters both the Misfortune and Leona here. The question is, will you be able to neuter them before they blow up the Senna here? Because if the Senna's dead, you're going to be missing a lot of the damage here in your bot duo.
Yeah, and I think Cho'Gath by himself just kind of gets beat up there and gets ran up for his lunch money with the MF and the Leona there. Well, I don't know, man. I'm definitely interested to see it. Agent C6 is also one of the craziest players out here too. I want to touch though on Downfall number 5, 6 on the leaderboards throughout the entire Amateur Worlds, with about a 7 KDA. So I feel he definitely is in his comfortability, in his zone right now, with that Kale pick. It's gonna be scary. CT3 already. I think this is gonna be it for CT. They're gonna get this one. It's gonna come back over, and we're really gonna see what TD will be able to bring once they show up on blue side. But how do you feel about it, Gopher?
I'm also favoring CT's comp, much more easier to execute here. And if you're able to garner an early lead and then just stomp out TDS here before they can scale up, it should be a very clear-cut win con for them.
I like that. I would definitely like that. I
Oh.
am interested to see bot lane though. I think with that, as we load into the Rift for game one, be sure to not touch that dial. Do not go anywhere. Game one for Amateur Worlds IBS semifinals is on the way, and we will be right back. Don't go anywhere.